Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining today's National Veterinary Stockpile Overview webinar. Before we get started, we would like to mention for all of our guests joining that your phone lines are currently in a listen-only mode to minimize our background noise. We do have a planned question and answer session at the end of our presentation today. However, you can submit note questions to us at any point throughout the conference by using the note chat function either on the right-hand side of your screen, or you can use the participants menu at the top of your screen. And please address all of these note questions to all presenters or all moderators. If you do experience any technical issues throughout today's conference, you may submit these via the note chat as well directly to myself at APT CES Operator. And with that, I'd like to, in today's conference, and hand the call over to Liz Clark for our opening remarks and introductions. Liz, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd also like to welcome you to this webinar today. Today's speaker is Andy Tidsworth. Andy is the Logistics Management Specialist assigned to the SCRS Logistics Center in Riverdale, Maryland, where he serves as the National Veterinary Stockpile Training and Exercise Coordinator. Andy joined USDA in 2014. Prior to that, he was assigned to the Logistics Directorate of the Joint Force Headquarters, National Capital Region, Fort McNair, D.C. While assigned to Joint Force Headquarters, he served as a logistics planner in support of Homeland Defense and civil support operations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Liz, for the introduction, and thanks to Eric for inviting me to speak today. Before we get started with the overview of the stockpile capabilities, I'd like to take a few minutes to describe our background and organizational goals and objectives. The National Veterinary Stockpile was established by presidential directive in 2004, and it serves as the repository for critical veterinary supplies, equipment, animal vaccines, and response support services to support emergency responses. The mission of the NVS program is, as it states here, to provide veterinary countermeasures needed to respond to damaging animal disease outbreaks, to deploy within 24 hours to the countermeasures against the most damaging diseases, and the NVS program maintains a robust deployment plan and exercises the plan regularly to ensure that this goal is met. The slide here depicts some of the veterinary services high consequence foreign animal diseases and pests. The Tier 1 diseases are those of national concern and pose the most significant threat to American animal agriculture. Tier 1 diseases are the highest consequence and risk, and they meet many of the criteria that are listed above. So Tier 2 includes diseases that are primarily transmitted by pests. Availability of hosts or competent vectors may largely determine the rate of spread of the disease or the pest and the capability to control or eradicate the outbreak. And then Tier 3 diseases and pests are considered to pose less consequence. They meet fewer of the criteria or they meet them to a lesser degree. Now I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss some of the physical assets in the NVS inventory. So listed here are countermeasures that are deployable from the NVS, and we'll cover each of these in subsequent slides. First, the 24-hour pushback. This contains PPE and decontamination supplies. It deploys within the 24 hours of APHIS approval. And we've moved in the past from a bulk configuration, from a kit configuration to a bulk configuration. And by doing so, we've eliminated some of the items in the kits that responders said that they did not need. And we've also increased the 24-hour pushback's capability for support. In the past, we could support 10 responders for up to 6 days. Now we can support, in the standard configuration, 15 responders for up to 6 days, and in the high protection configuration, 12 responders for up to 6 days. This slide shows the decontamination module, some of the things that are provided in that. And again, we push out these pushbacks initially. The idea is that responders, when they're on the ground, initially normally need the basic supplies, the basic decon, the basic PPE, and so forth. And rather than expecting them to submit a request form and go through that process, we will push these modules out as soon as we have confirmation that the responders on the ground have the capability of receiving them. So the NVS has a number of vaccines that we maintain in stock. Includes Rift Valley fever, classical swine fever. We have 4 different strains of avian influenza, including both the North American strain and the Eurasian strain. We do not stockpile foot and mouth disease vaccine. That's stored in the North American Foot and Mouth Disease Vaccine Bank. But we do provide the capability. We do ship the FMD vaccine, so we like to provide the information about that because we are responsible for transporting that from North American Foot and Mouth Disease Vaccine Bank to the end user. So I'd like to show you some of the mobile refrigeration units and the cold chain items that we maintain in the stockpile. Here's some of our larger ones. These are for use in non-contaminated areas only. We've got a 20-foot unit, a 12-foot unit depicted here. Some of the other thermal packing solutions that we have pallet shippers. This is the GTS 6420. And it'll maintain the vaccine for at least 120 hours for 5 days at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. And that 2 to 8 degrees threshold, that temperature range, is very important because many of the vaccines that we do ship require that they are kept in that range. Some of the other items are some smaller packaging solutions that we provide. The cool temp, and it maintains 2 to 8 degrees for 3 days. Some of the other packaging solutions here also will maintain for up to 3 days, or at least 3 days, excuse me. Now, along with these cold chain, these thermal packaging solutions, we'll also include temperature data loggers so that we can make certain that the vaccines that were shipped were maintained and didn't go outside of that temperature threshold at any time during the shipment, so that when the vaccines arrive, the end users will be confident that they are of the efficacy and the readiness. Antiviral medication is something that we also stockpile. So we maintain Tamiflu and Relenza. The purpose of this is that for prophylactic use, and that is that responders who are going to be exposed to a zoonotic disease, such as H1N1 or a zoonotic strain of HPAI, would, if the decision was made by leadership to use these human antiviral medications, the National Veterinary Stockpile, once directed, would ship those for prophylactic use. Now, these are only for the responders. So we already understand that the general population is serviced by the CDC. And the CDC provides human antiviral medications for pandemic outbreaks and so forth, and that's for the general population, that's for treatment. Whereas we provide it for prophylactic use for a relatively small population, and those are the responders that are signed into incident command. And we maintain a fairly significant stockpile of the antivirals. We maintain enough to provide for up to 500 or 600 responders for the first 6 weeks of the operation. Here are some planning considerations for antiviral medications. We review these sorts of planning considerations whenever we do training and exercises for the states, tribes, and territories. We have a fairly robust training exercise program that goes around the country and provides this sort of training and information. But for those that we don't have the opportunity to train with directly, we also have a planner's website which contains information including a National Veterinary Stockpile state plan template and a NVS state planning guide. So at the end of the briefing today, of the presentation today, I'll have my email there. And for anyone who's interested, please contact me, and I'll give you access to the restricted site, the planner site, where you can access some of those materials. So now I'd like to focus a little bit on poultry depopulation equipment. So some of the items that we maintain are listed here. So we got the KIPCO baby foam guard unit, the large KIPCO foaming units that are used for floor birds. North Carolina foam guard unit also used for foam birds. Whole house CO2 units, relatively new. I'll go into all these in a little more detail. And then some of the standard items that we have, like the tents and the CO2 carts, we still maintain those. And then I've got some information on a new piece of equipment, the CO2 poultry trailer. So, first of all, the KIPCO 80 foam guard unit is an adaptation of an agricultural irrigation water wheel. And you can see it on this slide on the left on that long trailer. And it operates by reeling the foam generator through the barn. So you can imagine that, these foam generators, I'll have a picture of those, a better picture here in a minute. So the barns have to be set up, they have to be large enough, and they need to have enough floor space that's unobstructed so that we can reel the foam generators through. So that leads me to the right side photos, those two photos on the right. The North Carolina foam podium is smaller, and it can be used in barns that don't permit the use of the KIPCO. And in some cases, the foam can even be shot in through the windows, and I'll have some photos of that in some of the upcoming slides. But first, here's a photo of the KIPCO 80 foam unit, and you can see here the large open structure that allows for it. They've got the doors on the end there, so we have to deploy out the foam generators and then reel them back through to the other end. Here's another photo of the KIPCO 80 foam guard unit, and it's very important that when dealing with floor birds that the barn is prepared properly so that it's penned. The penning part of the operation sometimes is the most important. So the key is to go in and pen the birds up to the point that they can be, so that you're not having to unnecessarily foam large areas of the barn that are not occupied by the birds. So as I mentioned earlier, the North Carolina Foam Pro is smaller. It can be used in barns that don't permit the use of the KIPCO. And this photo here depicts some responders shooting foam through the windows. So in some cases, we may find that that the dimensions or the layout of the barn may preclude the KIPCO. In other cases, there may be damage to the structure. We don't want our responders going inside. And in cases like that, the North Carolina units are very, very helpful. So here's some of the other devices that we maintain. So the CO2 carts, we used these extensively during the 2015 HPAI outbreak. And as you might imagine, these were very labor intensive to use the CO2 carts. These are used by industry, typically for spent hens and cage layer operations. And what we found was that it required the use of large crews. It's very time consuming, but at the time, it's what we had. So we used the CO2 carts extensively during that outbreak. On the right, the turkey euthanasia device, the TED. The TED is also it's slow. What we found in many cases that the TED could be used if there weren't all that many birds, or if in cases where depopulation had taken place and some of the birds had gotten out of the foam and away, and there were just a few that needed to be depopulated. The TED device is very effective, although some of the considerations are that it has to be cleaned. Obviously, it's a contaminated area, so it is a little time consuming to clean it. It is easy to use and maintain. It requires very little training. There are 1,000 studs per fuel canister, and the cost is about a penny per stud. Pretty easy to use, one-person operation. Something that is currently under development is the CO2 poultry trailer, and it's a portable gassing system. It's intended to be used primarily for backyard flocks. It can be taken into areas that maybe are fairly remote. It's easier to transport than some of the other larger pieces of equipment, for example, the chipcos and so forth. And I've got the capacity is listed here. So one of the depopulation methods that has been used by Canadians and industry in the past, but not by the National Veterinary Stockpile, not by the USDA, is whole house CO2. So this particular piece of depopulation equipment, it's gotten a lot of attention lately. So whole house CO2 depopulation units are intended to be used when possible instead of a CO2 cart. So really the application that we have in mind is for cage layer operations where foam can't be used and where CO2 carts are very, very time consuming and labor intensive to use. We believe that these CO2, this whole house CO2 method, this system, will dramatically improve our ability to reach our depopulation goal within 24 hours. So the upper photo on the left-hand side is of the distribution manifold. And so liquid CO2 is delivered from the tanker, and it goes into this manifold, which then has 4 separate connections to the dosing manifolds, and those are pictured at the right. So the photos on the right-hand side, those are the dosing manifolds. They deliver the gaseous CO2 to the poultry house, and they're placed throughout the house and independently connected into the distribution manifold. What we found is, and this is dependent upon the barn itself, the house, and how well sealed it is. So assuming that the house has been sealed properly and our crews are trained on how to do that, it'll take about 20 minutes to reach a 20% concentration of gas. And at that point, the birds are rendered unconscious. And typically the concentration will reach between 40 and 45% CO2 in around 40 minutes, usually a little under 40 minutes. And that's the concentration that's required to depopulate the birds. Some of the other depopulation equipment that we have, the Swine mobile electrocution unit and the captive bowl. So here's some photos of the Swine mobile electrocution unit. We're still under development. It's coming soon. And the way this works, a conveyor belt will transport the swine into the unit and through chains and kind of a curtain of electrodes. So on this next slide, the photo on the left is a little more clearly shows the electrode curtain. And then on the right, that's a photo of the control unit. So captive bolt pistols and charges can be used for a variety of species. We've had these around with cash, special captive bolt pistols for a number of years. And the pistol grip style, it's more ergonomic than some of the past units were. They were more inline units. This provides a little more control. It's less tiring for the operator. And as you can see here on the upper right-hand side, we have different charges for different species. So all the way from the pink charges for piglets and young cats, and then yellow is for small cattle, small pigs. Blue would be medium-sized cattle, market pigs, horses, things like that. And then for the really large animals like bulls or other heavy cattle, heavy pigs, large horses, the orange charges would be used. Some of the animal handling equipment that we maintain are depicted here. You can see we got gates and pails, chutes, mobile corrals, and all these are available upon request during an outbreak. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the 3D response support services. So in addition to physical countermeasures, the NVS, the National Veterinary Stockpile, maintains contracts to support 3D response services. So 3D, for most of you probably are familiar with that term, but maybe some are not. So it's the shorthand for depopulation, disposal, and decontamination. So the 3 Ds, depop, disposal, and decon. And it represents the activities that are that commonly demand rapid deployment of large numbers of response personnel and equipment. So we maintain these contracts. The 3D contractors are highly trained. They're emergency response. They're self-sufficient. They show up with their own equipment and supplies. They're capable of deploying within 24 hours. We can get 500 to 600 contractors on the ground within 3 days, and 1,000 personnel there within a week. So we at the NVS serve as the single point of contact for these 3D response support services, and we'll select the best qualified contractors. We leveraged contracts back in the 2015 outbreak. At one point, we had over 3,000 contractors on the ground in support of those operations. So in these slides, I've got a little bit of information about requesting assistance and the process there. So I'd just like to point out, just ask everyone to please remember when we have these outbreaks that the NVS is intended to be the source of last resort. And really it's activated at the point in time when state and local industry capabilities are in danger of being overwhelmed. So here I have an example from South Carolina. Here they maintain a list of inventory of resources that are available within the state, and so they understand that if they're in danger of being overwhelmed, that call us absolutely. But we just ask that the states pre-plan those resources and try to use those resources, because in many cases, as we saw in 2015 during the outbreak, these diseases, these foreign animal diseases, they don't recognize state boundaries. So if Iowa has it, then Minnesota is probably not. It's going to follow pretty quickly. At least that's what we've found. So the NVS process, here's a 5-step process. We put this together. Again, some of these products, if anyone is interested in them, just please contact me, and I can get you access to the planner site. And there's a much more detailed explanation of this diagram. But this particular diagram appears in Appendix B, and under the process to request NVS countermeasures. And that's in our state NVS planning template. So many of you, your states already have NVS state plans, and you probably have a diagram similar to this in your state plan. And I'll talk just a little bit more about these steps. So when requesting the National Veterinary Stockpile assistance, the state vets will be in contact already with their assistant district directors, or their assistant district director, and so they've already verified that they have an outbreak. In many cases, they have a presumptive positive, so they have PCR positive, and their antenna's up. Ours is as well, because if the state vets and the ADs are talking, then the district directors are talking back to the incident command group, back to us, and letting us know that they may have something. So we're already thinking about that. And then the veterinary services district emergency coordination leaders are really critical here, and they should be a point of contact for the district. That final bullet there, the district directors, their role, they'll make the official call into the 24/7 hotline, and they'll be talking to not only the NVS, but others within the incident command group. There'll be an initial conference call with all the commodity health centers, including NPIC. They'll ensure that the ICS 213R, that's the request form that's used to request the NVS countermeasures, is that is, if it's required, is immediately emailed over to NVS staff. Now, that said, in the heat of battle, if we don't get that request form, especially in the early stages of an outbreak, we will take a VOCO on the phone and start pushing things. So things like the pushbacks that were mentioned earlier, we're just ready to go. We're leaning forward in the foxhole on that one, ready to send that as soon as the state thinks they can are capable of receiving it. So again, the NVS request process here is the 5 easy steps. I kind of already went over these, so I won't belabor that too much. So the NVS plan tools, the NVS website, we update that regularly, and you can access that. It's all open source. There's a picture of the website. So it's got a lot of the things like the mission and purpose goals that we went over today a little bit. It's got news, it's got the documents, it's got information for the NVS planners, and then so some of the documents that we have on there. We have an NVS basic brief with speaker notes. We've got a fact sheet that's updated periodically, and then the additional site that we have, which is depicted here, is the restricted website for these plans. This is the website I mentioned earlier. So this is password protected. So again, you can email me, and I can get you access to this. Get some of the things on here. There's nothing that's secret. It's not classified. It's just that we prefer that people with a need for this information have it. So we share although with states, tribes, territories, and some cooperatives and extensions, things like that, and even some industry if they demonstrate a need or in some cases an interest. Something that we maintain and update periodically is a catalog. The most current version of this will be on the password protected site, so it's accessible to anyone who has access to that restricted site. There's an additional password requirement. I'll send that. I'll send that as a matter of course to anyone that requests access to the site itself. So once that gets to the site, you'll get instructions on how to add a password for how to access the catalog, and it describes everything that we have, all the countermeasures and so forth that we have in the stockpile. The training materials that we offer are listed here, and again, by going to our website, you can access this. But for a state that wants to do their own training or even an exercise or a drill, they can have access to all these warehouse training materials. The NVS has also developed an inventory management file, and this is an access database that we provide free of charge, and it's not software per se, it's a file. So as long as you have Microsoft access on your computer, you can use this file. And we have training materials on how to use the IMF, as well as access to the IMF itself are posted on the website. So here's some exercise materials that we provide. So whether it's just you're looking for a discussion-based, so like a workshop or a tabletop exercise, we have templates for TTXs, but we also have drill exercise templates if you want to do an operations-based exercise. So this slide depicts the progress of NVS written plans, and it's our goal to provide outreach and interact with as many of the states, tribes, and territories as we can. And so we feel like over the last 7 or so years, We've done a pretty good job, but of course we can always do better. We have a few states that we still need to work with and update their plans, and we have many states with plans in progress. The yellow depicts the plans in progress, and the green depicts those with an NVS state plan that's approved by their state health official. And some of these states have put together plans just based on what they pulled off of our planner's website. In other cases, we've gone out and done either discussion-based or operations-based exercises. So Virginia, Idaho, and Maryland all went green, and all their state officials approved their plans here just within the last year. So I think everyone seems to be making good progress there. So here's some of the questions that we pose and ask that planners keep in mind if you had an outbreak tomorrow. And we really at the NVS, with our training exercise program, we focus on the logistics side of things, but we also understand that the synchronization between operations and logistics is critical. And so we try to be as knowledgeable as possible on the operations side, but when we do train with the states, tribes, and territories, our focus will be on the logistics side. So if you can get a lot of the logistics problems solved in advance, then when you do have an outbreak, then you can focus on the tactical employment of some of the things that we have, and you can focus on your operations, response operations, and you don't have to worry as much about the logistics. The logistics will mostly take care of themselves as long as we know how to work with you and vice versa. So with that, it looks like we've got time for questions. So I'll just, I'm not sure, Tony, how you want to work this. We can open it up, or if people have already submitted written questions.
We do have one written question, which we can take, and I'll read. It says, are the prophylactic prescription human meds intended for both federal and state responders?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'm just recently, in fact, on the 9th of June, we held a tabletop exercise here in Riverdale, Maryland, to discuss that very topic. And what we found is that, well, first of all, as far as the NVS is concerned, the short answer is yes, they are. The National Veterinary Stockpile, once directed to do so, will ship to a medically qualified personnel in the incident management team, in the IC, and our only requirements, our only stipulations on it are that they be used for responders who have signed in to incident command. So but unfortunately, I can't answer the question for every state. So what we found are that states differ in their state laws, their health departments, and how they will prescribe and dispense human and animal medication. So some states will prescribe to everyone that signs into the IC, which we're fine with. That's who we provide them for. In other cases, some states say no, will only prescribe and dispense to government, so state, local, federal, and in a few instances we found states will only prescribe and dispense to state personnel. So we have an agreement in place with Federal Occupational Health, so if the state will only prescribe to state personnel and below, the FOH will set up a clinic to prescribe and dispense to the federal responders. And then all of our contracts that the NVS sets up, all of our 3D response services contracts, these large contracts, require that the contractors cover themselves as far as this sort of thing goes. So I hope that answers the question. Oh, here we go. Oh, so the next question is, also from Dennis Mogan, do states need to plan to manage the warehouse and inventory with only state employees, or does the NVS or APHIS also send personnel to help manage the warehouse? The warehouse itself, really the state should plan to do that itself. they should plan to do it itself. However, and the reason I say that is because we have a limited number of incident management teams. There are 5 incident management teams that APHIS has. And what we found in the past is that there are IMTs tend to be unified, blended, and a combination of state and federal responders. And particularly when it comes to the warehouse itself, those positions, it's best to staff those with state. Let's see, here's another question. Also send personnel to home management. Generally speaking, we'll have personnel such as the logistics chief and the deputy logistics chief that we'll push out with an IMT. So in some of those higher level positions, we do have people on tap to do that sort of thing. It's just when you get down to the receiving distribution manager and the order manager and the warehouse team chiefs and the warehouse personnel that work on the teams, really it's unlikely that we here at in APHIS would be able to provide those personnel, especially in a large outbreak. Okay, it looks like, okay, good. Barb Porter-Spalding has a question. Must states have a vaccine distribution plan in order to receive vaccine? The states should have a vaccine distribution plan. They should have that on hand. However, the NVS does not stipulate if we are directed to ship vaccine and the state has a vaccine manager in place to receive and properly store, and by properly store, that includes cold chain, then the NVS, once directed to do so, will ship. But yes, Dr. Porter-Spalding, that's a great point. States should definitely have a vaccine distribution plan. We have another question here from Randall Wenzel. Has the CO2 poultry trailer been utilized yet? No, it has not. That CO2 poultry trailer is still in development, and it has not been used yet. Well, I don't know if we have anyone on the line that participated in the 2015 outbreak. I'm more than happy to discuss some of that. We certainly have time because depending on when responders deployed in the outbreak, we're talking about the high PathAI outbreak in 2015 that affected mainly the Midwest, but not just the Midwest. There were a number of procedures that were in place, but they've never actually been exercised in a real-world environment. So the National Veterinary Stockpile, among others, in SPRS, Surveillance Preparedness Response Services, as well as others, and veterinary services writ large, we learned lessons from that, and we took those lessons learned and we modified our procedures. So if there's anyone that has a question about how something was done when they were deployed, if they responded to that outbreak or any other, really, the END outbreak earlier in, in the early 2000s, we've changed quite a bit, even since 2015. And I'm happy to discuss any of the updated procedures that we have if someone has a question about one of them.
And Eddie, what I'll do for our guests is I'll just remind everyone connected in that you can still submit us those note questions via the note chat function either on the right-hand side of your screen or located under the participants menu at the top of your screen. Please address all of those note questions to all presenters or all moderators. And if you would like to ask a live question over the phone lines, you can do so at this time by dialing #2 on your phone keypad, and that will place you into our live question queue. You will then hear notification when your line is unmuted, and please state your name and question. Again, that is #2 on your phone keypad to place yourself into our live question queue.
We do have another written question.
I did. Okay, is the raw system going to be utilized for the next outbreak? As far as I know, it will be. I know we still have that section is still in place, and I believe it will be. You know, really, that particular question, it's a little bit outside of my area of expertise. Oh, I just got. Thank you, my director, Mr. Rodney White, just responded. Yes, it will be. Thanks, Mr. White. I appreciate it. Can the pharmaceuticals go to a state RSS site and rest to a state warehouse if requested? Oh, you know, that in many cases, state NVS plans include this, or in some cases it's in the emergency management plan. But the state RSS sites are an excellent place for them. In fact, when we exercise and train with the states, one of the recommendations we make is that use the facilities that you have in place that are appropriate to storing vaccines and medical types of supplies. And every state has an SNS plan. They exercise with the pods, with the points of dispensing, and they have their state health departments and their liaisons to the SNS. And what we find in many cases is they use the same protocols and also the same facilities in many cases in the plan that they have for using our vaccines from the National Veterinary Stockpile, just as similar to what they would in a pandemic outbreak. Okay, Mr. White would like to speak. Okay. Tony, Mr. White would like to speak.
And we do have Mr. White's line currently open. I would just say, Mr. White, for your line, you actually have your voice over computer connected, so that line is unmuted. The way your audio is connected, you actually have to physically speak through your computer speakers. If you don't have computer speakers enabled that are picking up your audio, we'll just have you dial in and we can open up your audio line. And then in the meantime, Andy, we actually did have a live caller join into our queue. Would you like to go to that first live caller?
Sure.
All right, wonderful. So moving to that first caller now. And caller, your line is open. Please go ahead. Well, we're still not hearing the audio coming through. You might check if you don't have yourself muted on your own end. And Andy, it seems that we're having trouble getting connected.
Okay. In the meantime,
Tony,
while that person is connecting, I think we have two people connecting. Mr. White is attempting to connect, as well as you said you had another caller who is connecting to ask a question. While they're connecting, I see Dr. Porter-Spalding has another question here regarding the work the NVS has done with the National Incident Management Team Logistics Chiefs. So what we've done, we've partnered the National Veterinary Stockpile and the Spurs Logistics Center. We have a program in place where we allow one of the logistics chiefs or a deputy logistics chief, or in some cases another person that's a part of the IMT or a potential future logistics member on an IMT, and they are allowed to come work with us, work with the National Veterinary Stockpile, and so they spend, I believe it's up to 20% of their time is allowed, and they join us on our staff calls, on our training calls, and so forth. And they physically come to and work with us at our main warehouse. And we've brought, in fact, we've brought all the log chiefs and deputies out for training. We provided the inventory management file training to them in the past. We've given them, we provided tours of the warehouse. We've had extensive training sessions with them on site, where we've gone through and discussed the practices, procedures of the National Veterinary Stockpile, and we've solicited input from those log chiefs and deputies, particularly, well, all has been solicited after the 2015 outbreak. So based on the input that we've received from these logistics chiefs and the National Incident Management Teams and the NIMTs, we've used that to update some of our documents, some of our policies, and then the procedures and the way that we operate. So, and as Mr. White mentioned, the current shadow, we call them shadows. So the current shadow is Mr. Edmund Grant, and we've had a number of these. It's somewhat limited though. We only have one shadow at a time. So if we have members of the NIMT that they're on the line that have done this, in the past, then they're welcome to join the queue, and we can talk about a future shadow detail with us. So, Mr. White's on audio phone. See a note there.
Andy, I just sent him the number to call in on the speaker line so he can be unmuted the entire time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I'm sorry, Dr. Porter-Spalding, was second part to her question. The plan is in the future for the district personnel and contractors to start doing some training together, so that we can. And this is some of the training with training that we've done in the past with our contractors, but now we're going to include some of the SPURS district personnel, and really that would be if Mr. White can join. That's something that I know he's very well read on. I do know that they're planning on doing that training, but I don't have a lot of details yet.
Andy, this is Rodney. You hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly now.
Yeah, I might have missed that last question that was asked.
Oh, okay. Barbara Porter-Spalding asked about the interaction between the stockpile and the national IMT logs chiefs, and the plan to train district and contractors together starting in D1, District 1.
Yeah, I can add to that, Andy. Yes, we've partnered with professional development staff and conducting in the future more local district-focused depopulation training that includes contractors as well as APHIS employees, depop supervisors, safety managers, and so forth, so we can improve our communication and training versus waiting to an emergency and having to meet responders for the first time. So we've conducted at least 2 to 3 planning meetings. We're working with Todd Johnson, emergency coordinator in District 1, who's pulling a lot of the logistics and resources together so we can put this initial training event on sometime tentatively scheduled in September of this year. And we're developing the agenda currently and pulling a lot of logistic resources together. So we're trying to make sure we mirror more of a realistic training. So we're looking at, from areas of even responding to the incident, credentialing, having contractors and all personnel check into the incident. We're going to focus on decon, biosecurity, proper operation of the foam equipment, training these contractor crews and depop supervisors in a collaborative effort so that when we do have to exercise or train in a realistic situation, we've kind of improved or enhanced our capabilities from that standpoint. And that's pretty much the objectives of this training. We previously have trained, centrally at University of Delaware, but I think this new approach would improve communication, provide more realistic training for the contractors and VS employees, so that we can, improve our proficiency in depop operations. And again, I'll just say that it's a pilot right now, so we're pulling a lot of things together to put this on in September up in New York. And we're going to focus on, for this event, foam depopulation. But as we move beyond the pilot, and next year perhaps look at District 2, we may and look at other options for depop. So it won't always be foam. It may be whatever that state or may think that they would use in an incident, whether it be whole house gassing, whether it may be the CO2 poultry carts, whether it may be other forms, the TEDs and things like that are going to be incorporated into this 2 to 3 day training event. So we're looking forward toward the first pilot in September. If that answers your question. And
okay, that was Barbara Porter-Spalding's question, and it seems to me you answered it very completely. Barb, is that what you were looking for? Yeah, she says thanks. All right, are there any other questions?
And again, just a final reminder for all of our guests, if you did want to ask a live question over the phone lines, you can still do so by dialing #2 on your phone keypad, and you can still submit those note questions to us using the note chat either on the right-hand side of your screen or located under the participants menu at the top of your screen. Please address all of these notes to all presenters or all moderators.
You did have a written question come in.
Okay, this one from Janet Mogan. Are full-scale NVS exercises to receive countermeasures still being planned? Yes, ma'am. We still hold NVS state full-scale exercises, and we try to do one a year. We normally do one a year. The next scheduled exercise for 2018 is with Ohio. Last year was Idaho. So yes, we do that. Now, the exercises, though, we don't always, we don't necessarily ship countermeasures, but we certainly go through the process. And what we'll do is we'll ship out a push pack, high protection push pack. We'll ship out modules on a truck, and we'll go through that entire exercise. And in doing so, it will exercise the ability of receiving, but we don't plan to ship the equipment itself at this time. Now, I know in the past, I think it was Colorado, it was before my time, but Colorado, there were some items that were shipped out there, but no, right now we're not planning on shipping the equipment itself on any of the upcoming exercises. And then I see Dr. Simich has a question. Andy, did you say there was a new version of the catalog? Well, that's always kind of the question is it new? Well, is it new to me? So we have the most current version of the catalog posted on the website. And just let me see here.
Andy, what I can add to that, I think the catalog is being updated. As some of you may be aware, we're continuing to add equipment to our inventory, such as the whole house, the CO2 poultry trailers. We've got second and third generation nozzle units that we're actually, we've received recently, and we're putting those in the catalog. So the most current one that's out there on the web may not be the most updated one. And the log section is working on updating that. And Marilyn, we appreciate your input into the earlier version and try to incorporate some of your comments into the catalog as well.
And Marilyn, if I may, the date of the most current published one, which is one that's posted February 2016, so that does not incorporate your input yet. And as Ronnie said, we're working on that one, but it hasn't, the new one, but it hasn't been published yet. So the most current one is February 2016. Okay, I see that. I see your question there. Okay, I think I answered your question. Okay, good.
Okay, we have a couple minutes left before we have to sign off at 2 o'clock. So if there's any other questions, we're ready to answer them, and if not, we will sign off. Okay.
All right, Liz, this is Andy. So hearing none, I would like to take just a moment and thank everybody for their time and attention and all the great questions that they asked. Thank you very much.
And for everybody that's still signed on, Andy's contact information is on the screen. So if a question comes up in your mind later on, you can always contact him. This webinar has been recorded, and it will be put on the Vet Services Training and Exercise webpage probably in about a week. And I'd like to thank you all also for all your good questions. And just to let you know, we will be sending out some more webinar announcements for August and September, so watch your emails. And with that, I will say thank you to everybody and have a great afternoon.
And again, we would like to thank all of our guests for joining us today. That does conclude our conference at this time, and you may now disconnect.